Good evening. Good evening. I call to order the Open Space and Conservation Commission's regular meeting for Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Want to go ahead and start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody here from the public that wish to speak? Hearing none? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the public hearing. Town of Rocky Hill, care of Ray Carpentino, Acting Town Manager. Proposed culvert extension and energy dissipator located within the conservation easement area at 10 Belding Lane. Could I please have Secretary Kelly read the legal notice, please?
The Open Space and Conservation Commission, acting as the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency for the Town of Rocky Hill, has scheduled a public hearing for Wednesday, August 10th, 2022, beginning at 6 p.m. in the council chambers, second floor of the Rocky Hill Town Hall, 761 Old Main Street, Rocky Hill, Connecticut, 06067, to consider the following: an application for Class C permit from the Town of Rocky Hill, care of John Mayer, the former town manager, I would add, proposed culvert extension and energy dissipator located within the conservation easement area at 10 Belden Lane. At this hearing, all interested persons may be heard and written communications received. A copy of the plan and related documents are open for inspection in the office of the town engineer and the town clerk in the Rocky Hill Town Hall. Rocky Hill Town Hall is accessible to all with ADA-compliant facilities. Written comments may be directed to Robert Alvarado at Land Use Commissions at rockyhillct.gov or Engineering Department, 761 Old Main Street, Rocky Hill, Connecticut, 06067, and must be received at least 1 hour prior to the start of the meeting. Signed, Open Space and Conservation Commission, Michelle Zach, Chairperson, Sandy Kelly, Secretary.
Thank you, Secretary Kelly. I would like to start this off by stating that Commissioner Melissa Kaplan will be voting in place of Chairperson Whalen, who could not make it this evening. Okay.
All right. I just, before Steve starts, I just, point of order, I just want to let you know that the notices for all the abutters within 500 feet of this parcel has been notified. We did send out 300 and some odd notices because there's 2 condominium complexes nearby, so.
Okay.
Everybody's been informed.
Thank you. So noted. Thank you, Bob.
Well, good evening. Steve Soplak, Director of Public Works and Community Development Services. I know most of you, but welcome to the new members who I haven't met. Tonight we have Fraser Walsh, engineer from Zuvich, which is our consulting engineer who's working on this project. Gino Paduski, I'm going to say it wrong. He's with Savian Son. They're a contractor that does pipelining, which we're looking to do here. And Jason Scott is another engineer that we've recently came on board. He's not going to be able to attend tonight, but he's also part of this project with us. So, real quick little background, why we're here. Belden Lane is a road in town that's been here well over 100 years. Shows up on our 1869 maps that you might see hanging around in different offices here in town. So, very old road. The brook always went through. Somewhere along the line, the state had an interest in it. I believe, I'm not sure why, but this 1954 map, state of Connecticut, and it's showing their interest in the road. That map showed head walls and a pipe underneath, size and locations unknown. Is kind of a sketch. It appears to be different than what's there now. 1973, Cedar Hollow was built. That's on the west side of Belden Lane. At that point, there was a 48-inch corrugated metal pipe, which is still there. So we're talking a 50-plus-year-old pipe there. Average lifespan on that is 50 years. So we're beyond our useful life of this pipe. That Cedar Hollow map showed a 20-foot by 20-foot easement to the state for maintenance and repair of the head wall and the pipe. Unfortunately, when the subdivision on the east side of the road was done, there was no provisions for any access, just a conservation easement, and that's why we're here this evening. As I said, it's a 48-inch corrugated metal pipe. It's approximately 10 feet below the surface of the road, so it's very deep, and it now needs attention. As we said, there's a public hearing. We put it out. We've received dozens of phone calls from the general public and a couple walk-ins that, well, we've sat and spoke with the folks. Most of them didn't know what was going on, but there's a lot of rumors going around that this is a sidewalk project. As you might know, the town council would like a sidewalk from the center of town down to the ferry, and one of the options is down Pratt Street over Belden. That is not what this public hearing is about. It has nothing to do with sidewalks. It's all about the repair of this pipe. The proposed plan does show a shelf wide enough to put a sidewalk if it's going to happen in the future. At this time, there are no plans. At the last meeting, you folks asked for us to get a Connecticut licensed soil scientist, which we have. James Sipperly, he's a licensed soil scientist here in the state. Unfortunately, he can't make it this evening, but you have a copy of his report, which came in today. If you'd like, I can take the time to go over the 7 points that you folks asked for. I can speak on his behalf. You can read it. I'm not sure what you'd like to do.
If you like, one of the things that we could do, have Fraser go through the presentation of what is it that we're doing, and then address the environmental report. If that works for you, might give you a little bit of time to go over the report,
Okay.
Beforehand.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
All right.
Thank you.
So we'll have Fraser come up, Mr. Fraser Waltz from Zuvich.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all again. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening. When we last spoke, basically, I guess I'll just go back over what we talked about at our last hearing. Forgive me, I haven't seen the wetlands report myself. I know you're just receiving copies of it, so I'll offer what we talked about last time as you guys are reviewing the report that's in front of you. As Steve mentioned, the culvert is in need of repair. So the intended project, instead of removing and replacing it, is to line it. And Gino with Savvy is here to answer any questions you have about that. The current slope coming off of Belden to the east is very steep. It's a 1-to-1 slope. So also with this project, we're proposing to extend the outlet downstream to minimize the potential, reduce the potential for erosion activities as water moves off of Belden Lane down into the brook. Thank you, sir. Just thinking about the order of operations, the intent is to close off Belden Lane during construction, allow for construction vehicles access down the access road as shown on the plans in front of you there on the screen to a landing point, to remove the existing vegetation as necessary, to perform the site grading and fill work, extend the culvert, install a new head wall, line the entire run of storm sewer, remediate with 2 stone, as shown here on the grading plan, site plan, gravel leak-offs to take water from Belden Lane down into the brook in a more armored manner, and restore the site with a gravel base and/or on the neighboring property, number 10, Belden Lane, with seed and mulch. Down at the bottom of the proposed head wall and culvert, as you've seen on your plans, we're showing for scour hole. The intent there is to reduce the velocities of stormwaters as they come through the culvert. Other things to keep in mind as we go through the construction process, there will be dewatering and water diversion necessary, as we've discussed. The intent is to put temporary dams upstream of the work area, pump water up and over the road through a filtration system before discharging it downstream. And let's see, what else did we talk about? Total disturbed area, again, was approximately 1,800 square feet. Any questions? Anything else you want to talk about? If you remember, we talked, Commissioner O'Connor asked about the curbing and the proposed condition. So as now shown on the screen, you can see the limits of where the curbing will not be replaced as it's removed as part of this project. Again, the intent there is to allow water to get off the pavement earlier, so it's not as focused right behind the head wall. If you remember the pictures that we saw, there was that large concrete block that was protecting, the existing culvert. We're trying to divert water away from the back of the head wall to avoid that condition in the future.
Okay, we'll save questions for after the presentation.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
All right, so as you recall, there was 7 points here that you asked for some clarifications or some more information from the soil scientist, Mr. Sipperly. The first is verify the existing wetland limits. His report, second paragraph, he concurs with the delineation by Mark Barrows that was previously done. He, performed soil samples using the auger, known techniques, and he actually found some of the old flagging still intact, little knots on the trees. Number 2, check for invasive species. He reports there's very limited invasive species that exists. There's multiflora rose on the north side of the banks, and there's bittersweet, but he did not know the exact species, so he can't say whether it was non-invasive or not, because I guess some consider bittersweet to be non-invasive. 3, fish habitat. There is a roughly 4-foot deep by 6-foot diameter plunge pool, and he found no signs of aquatic life other than some small green frogs floating in the water. 4, federal wetlands. He says there are no federally regulated hydraulic wetland soils in this area. Excuse me, I missed 4. Condition of trees to be removed. The trees that exist are mainly red maples and poplars. He noted 3, and I think there's more than that have been severely undermined. They're going to be going over soon, and a couple that are leaning into the water course. One has a triple stem, and it seems to be in decline. As you've seen in the pictures and the topo showing that, it's like a 2-to-1 slope. So if a tree goes down and blocks the flow, as it is, we can't get down there to get it out very easily. It's a major task. That was 4. 5 was the wetlands. 6 is possible mitigation. He reports that there's really no practical area to perform mitigation on the site due to the heavy tree canopy and the shade that it provides at all times, and refers to very steep slopes, which aren't very conducive for planting. And then last, there was noted on the topo in the southern portion, it kind of shows what looks like a swale. That's from a leak off out on Pratt Street. So it's just taking surface water across, overland into the stream. So it is not a wetland soil. It's not a stream. It's just a channel for the leak off. Also, we did receive one set of comments that's included. They also came in today through our land use email, and it's pretty lengthy. It's from the resident who would be the most impacted. They're not particularly in favor of. They would really like to see the road closed. They're not in favor of any kind of work on their property, which is actually shown here going. The access going on their property. We went out today and took a look. We can move the access into the existing easement like they request in their submission. They also asked to keep the bushes that are buried on the top of the slope, which we can keep by moving the access. And let's see, what else did they ask for? Yeah, I have a full list of comments. Safety, 2-year-old daughter. I understand. I've had kids. It's sympathize, but it should make this better by lessening the slope, so safer for the child if they happen to go over the edge there. They're concerned about the replanting and mitigation, which we just said is very minimal in this area. I mean, we're going to do something for plantings and such, but because of the canopy, it's minimal. We propose an access road down, and we have to get down there somehow. It's 12-foot drop or so over a short amount of space. We can bring in fill, build a road, but it's not going to be a road as we think of paved road. It'll be fill, stone, probably like a processed aggregate base during construction. And when we're done, rather than remove it, leave it, and we put mulch over it and just let nature take over. And we've done this in other places. And if you like, I have some example, as a picture of what we've done, just so you kind of get an idea what it might look like after the fact. Yes, you kind of know it's there, but it's bushes and stuff will take over, and if we ever have to get down in the future, it's there, so we can do the maintenance. Let me pass these out. This is 2 pages. The first, you really can't even see where it is, and the second shows you what from a close-up.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, where is this accessing closer to the Pratt Street line, Pratt Street?
So what I'm showing you here now is actually on France Street. If you go out to France Street, it's around 260-ish.
Okay. I'm
So
sorry.
what you're seeing here on the first page, if you look in the middle of the picture, you kind of see what looks like a hole in the shrubs. That is the where they had the access for an outfall maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Our highway department cleared a spot, as I said, put down the processed stone, went in, did what the repairs and the maintenance they had to at the bottom of the hill here, and then came out, and as they came out, put down the mulch. And then the second page, you can see what's happened in the 5 or 6 years, 7 years since we've been there. It's just overgrown, but there's still an access way, so if they have to get back down there and perform work, they can. So that's just a sample what something like that would look like. I understand his concern that he says people are dumping. This happens everywhere where there's vacant property. People take their stuff, dump it, couches, refrigerators. We find all kinds of stuff. We would have the guide rail here. We'd take out portions of the guide rail, do our work, come out, put the guide rail back. I mean, if it became a nuisance, that's something we could look at, a fence down the line. So people can't, they're not going to be able to drive in because the guide rail is going to be there. But if it becomes a real nuisance, we could possibly fence it. And I'm just looking at the rest of his items here. Access. He's concerned about future property value. I understand, but and then the inconvenience keeping the child, the kids up at night. But and again, I understand. Unfortunately, that's unavoidable. Maintenance has to happen to this section. One other thing we have here is on my list. So we have alternatives. So some of our alternatives here would be do nothing and risk the collapse of the pipe. We could close the road permanently. This would require a study to see how it impact the traffic, impact the EMS response, impact the school bus routes, whether it means to planning and zoning. We'd have to build a cul-de-sac, so that would impact the neighbors probably worse than this, because you're going to have a circle in front of their house, cutting into their property, have to get some kind of easement, purchase the easement, and the town council would have to approve that. So we'd have to go to the town council with that. Another option is a bridge. A bridge would be very impactful. And it's well over $1 million. Just to give you an idea, we did France Street in 2017, much simpler project, and that was $750,000 at 2017. And then another option would be, so we didn't have to extend the pipe 30 feet, we could bring up the height of those head walls to lessen the slope off the edge of the road, again, we still have to get to the bottom of the slope to do the work. So anyway, slice it, we got to get in, and there's going to be an impact. What that is to be determined right now. Any questions? We have Fraser, Gino, and myself.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
Before the questions start, Steve, could you talk about the project as far as timetable? If a permit is to be approved, from the start of the project to the end, full stabilization of the project, what are you looking at for time frame? Is it 2 months? Is it 3 months? 4 months?
Well, first we need final design plan of the head walls and all that. I'm not sure how long you're gonna need on that, Fraser.
Pretty quick, within a month or so
Man.
from go ahead.
Unfortunately, we're missing the best time to do it right now during a drought. Then technically we'd have to bid it. There's only 2 contractors that I know of who do this kind of work. One of them is sitting in the audience. To line the pipe is pretty quick.
To just a simple lining with the water and everything, you're looking at a week, maybe 2 weeks tops.
Yeah. So, and then,
And then you have the building of the head wall, obviously.
yeah, it's the rest of the remainder of the construction is probably a couple months.
And then final stabilization, of course, you're planting and seeding
Yeah.
really in the spring.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stabilize for at least a growing
Fraser,
season.
can he just step,
why
erase
don't
the
you-
screen?
You can see people.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking
And also,
you're talking to the
yes,
screen.
Fraser, speaking to the mic so we
Yes,
can
sir.
so we can get you, if you don't mind,
Definitely.
please.
So if construction is completed this fall/winter, then of course the seed won't go down until planting season in the spring. And as you know, you need a full growing season after that to call it stabilized. So you'd be looking at a final stabilized site at least in the fall. But of course, you'd have stone down to protect the site as much as possible. It's just the seed you're waiting to germinate.
Okay.
I'm sure you've seen in the previous presentation that most of the riprap that was holding that slope back is now down and probably 20, 30 yards downstream. And that slope was paved with asphalt to try and hold it, and that's starting to go down into the stream. So I was just out there today, and there's chunks coming up. So, and the head wall's starting to collapse, overturn.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? No? Okay. Go ahead and start with questions. Commissioner Brown.
Quick question. You said that the pipe there would have a 50-year lifespan, the existing culvert.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? What ends the lifespan? Does it rust out? What?
Yeah, it's getting holes, rust.
Okay. And we're lining the pipe. Where are we lining the pipe with?
Gino.
Yep, so we're lining it with essentially a brand-new we essentially manufacture a brand-new PVC line or pipe inside the old one.
Okay.
So you will, again, have a 50-year lifespan with a new pipe without excavation.
Okay, so it's not like the MDC project where they inflated, urethane on the inside.
Yep, that's exactly.
But how thick is this PVC going to be?
Yep. So it's a matter of stability and what essentially what our final design is on the thickness, because we can go anywhere up to about ½ inch all the way down. With something this size, we wouldn't go anything less than what we consider as 24 mils. So 24 millimeter would be the absolute minimum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of am a polymer chemist, so I understand.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm just thinking in terms of the structural strength of something thin, an inch, even if it was a ½ inch of PVC, put in place, that you're comfortable with that being load bearing.
Absolutely. Yep. So, and we would, in our final design, we would make sure that it is absolutely, everything is taken into consideration as far as depth of soil, asphalt, car weight, load weight, all that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I understand the forces stressing out around the sizes, but okay.
Yep.
That was my only question. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Stevens.
Okay. So I just really briefly wrote over the Sibley report because I just got it like
So do we.
Right, candidly.
About 2 o'clock today.
So, and I listened to what you said about, summarizing his report. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight, so some of the questions I have probably can't get answered unless, he answers them. One of the main things I have is the water course that's coming off of Pratt Street and
Yep.
that swale there.
Yep.
It shows on the town GIS as a water course. He mentions it, I believe, in the 5th paragraph.
Yeah.
He talks about, there's also a second stone line trench located on the south side of the water course that is similarly stabilized and contained.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't identify it as a water course or if it's a regulated area or not. And like I said, on the town GIS, they show it as a water course.
But town GIS is just I mean, it's a pictorial thing. It's not, they go off of,
And I get that,
you know.
but you're not a soil scientist, so you
I am not.
can't identify it as a water course or not.
I don't know if he tested it. I can't imagine up there it is. Bob?
I do not know. I think from the meeting that we have with him, because we did meet with Mr. Zipperly on the last Thursday, he did walk the property and he didn't find it to be a water course. Again, I'm not going to put the word in his mouth because it's not part of the report, but I'm just telling you the meeting that we had, Steve and I and Mr. Zipperly on Thursday, and he went through the points that the commission had asked the town of Rocky Hill to address, and of course, that was one of the points, and he did state that it was not a water course.
Well, like I said, in that 5th paragraph, he does just call it a similarly channelized thing, second stone line trench. So he doesn't really tell you if it's a regulated area or not. So that's one of my questions. And if it is a water course, even if it's not, it should probably be shown on the plan and how you're going to address it and how it's going to tie into the other, the other water course. It should be addressed, even if it's just a drainage swale.
Well, we could do that. We can add that.
So that's one of my biggest concerns. And then the next one is on the west side of Belden. In his report, he doesn't really determine whether or not that's a federal wetland. And you've got activity on the west side of Belden Lane. And again, on the town GIS, they show that as a wetland.
Yep.
So I would think you'd want to, I know the federal wetlands isn't part of our jurisdiction, but it would certainly be something that you'd have to address, and it should be in the plans. And I know you're going to be doing work on that area, so.
Yeah, that would be where you were lining from, right?
Right, correct.
So it's not,
So it's a
I'd
mineral
say like a
area.
jacking pit, but I don't know what you call it.
Right.
On the inside,
But even if it's a
Yeah.
temporary
Right.
impact, I mean, you still have work
So-
that you're doing on that site. And then lastly, the ordinary high water wasn't delineated, and that should be shown on the maps for any federal permits that you have to get. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna need to get federal permits for this, with the amount of activity you have.
Okay.
And again, if that, other water course, like I said, it should really be clearly looked at and determined if it is a regulated area or not, the one that's in the trench off of Pratt Street.
Off of Pratt Street, yeah. Let me just go back to the 1990. Granted, it's 24 years ago, whatever. 1998, when this was originally flagged, it wasn't noted. So, I can only make the assumption that it's not, but we can have them look at it.
And then, assuming that you do have to get federal permits, then I highly doubt the Corps is going to want to let you do 1,800 feet of disturbance with no mitigation. And we all, I think, wanted to see some mitigation as part of this project. He is, in Sipperly's report, he is identifying certain invasive species, and it's not unreasonable to ask for planting plans.
Mhm.
Whatever you can do to alleviate the invasive species and maybe give us some sort of planting plan just to,
Yeah, we will absolutely have a planting plan.
well, like I say, the main thing
Yeah.
is that trench.
Right.
It's obviously a permanent defined channel if he's calling it a trench. And I haven't seen it, so I don't know personally if it's a water course or not, but it does show on the town GIS. So
All right.
that's all I have.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Kelly.
Thank you. Well, Commissioner Stevens just covered some of what I was going to ask. Where the report says that he couldn't determine the type of invasives, that's not an answer? I mean, so we need to know what they are so that we know that we're
No,
going to
I
take
think
them
he's saying
out.
that he couldn't determine the one type of bittersweet.
I'm not sure of the exact species, but some consider types of bittersweet to be non-invasive.
Yes.
So, well, okay, that's fine, but we need to know if that's an invasive type of the species? Wouldn't that seem to make this report accurate and help us move forward? Because it is important, as Commissioner said, to consider dealing with the invasives. This is our opportunity to get in there. It's a
Right.
messy, overgrown area. And then as far as the mitigation, again, repeating, you know, and this would be through staff, but we've done mitigation in other areas of the town. If it can't be done here, which because of the easement, I understand, and the tree cover, et cetera, let's come up maybe with a plan.
We
where-
go off-site, yes.
Yeah, where another area could benefit. So those are my points that we'd like to see answered to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Kelly. Excuse me, Commissioner Kaplan.
Yeah, can you, I think it was asked last time to quantify the number of trees that need to be removed. I think that would be important to know too, because if we want to replant, we'll need to know how many trees are
There's-
gonna need to be removed. I don't know,
Thought
if
he
it was, I
was-
don't know if it was recorded in the minutes. I don't think I saw it, but I
No,
think I asked about that. I think maybe I didn't ask the number, maybe it was just, yes, they were gonna be removed. But I think I mentioned it might be good to know the number.
Okay, we'll have to inventory them. Because what we had in our notes was check the condition of trees to be removed on.
Okay, maybe there was a little.
I wasn't here last meeting, so I don't have memory of
Might-
that,
it might
just
be
the
good to
notes I
have.
was given, yeah.
Sorry.
And unfortunately, Mr. Sipley isn't here this evening to
Yeah, I did have.
answer, and like you, we just got this at 2:00 today.
Yeah, I did have questions about.
Yeah, unfortunately, we
Soils.
can't, we
But-
can't read his mind.
Yeah, and again with the bittersweet, I mean, there's American bittersweet, but that's like a rare species. So I found that statement odd.
To me, it's all kind of
Yeah,
invasive and kills everything.
Okay, so that was, and you commented about the replanting somewhere else. I was gonna make that same comment. And then, in terms of the greenscaping of the access road, is there any way to, I mean, I don't wanna accelerate the excessive overgrowth of it, but is there any way to maybe cover it with a thin layer of organics and seed it a little bit? With maybe even just especially if it's done in the winter, you could put down some winter rye or something, you know, to help stabilize it a little bit or help the vegetation along.
So you're referring to the access road we're gonna have to build, is that what you're saying?
And then at the end, yeah.
Again, yeah.
I mean, even if
Like I said, what we've done in the past is it's a process aggregate, so,
Yeah.
you know, rye will probably grow in there. We just put down the mulch and let the nature kind of take over. Nothing really gets in deep, so that comes out easy.
No, I know. I mean, I work
I know what
on
you're saying.
nothing
Yeah,
but
you can get
utility
some
projects.
invasives that might take over in there. This is
Yeah,
one of the residents' concerns is technically his property, even though it is a conservation easement. He's concerned with it becomes an attractive nuisance by having that as like a grass kind of thing.
So he would prefer to have the stone or not?
He'd
have
prefer to have nothing.
Well, yeah.
But if we had to do it within the easement, and then he's not in favor of keeping that road, but it just makes sense for future if we have to get in there. Say a
No,
24-inch tree comes down and blocks the flow, we got to cut that up.
Yeah, I acknowledge that. It also helps with, you know, stabilizing the slope
Yeah.
as well. I acknowledge that. I just was trying to think of a way to accelerate the greening of it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I
We
work-
could try. Yeah.
I mean, even if you just put, the seed isn't going to grow if you don't have any organics, but
Yeah, there's not much of yeah.
I don't know. I'm not.
Natural.
beholden to that one.
10 or 12%.
I'm not like requiring, I'm not saying that that has to be done. It's something that we can discuss as a group,
We
but,
can see if we can come up with something.
okay.
Note that down here.
I think that's all I have.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner O'Connor?
Thank you.
You.
So I think going back to the concerns that are listed here by the property owner at 10 Belden Lane, did I understand correctly that we're saying that there's an opportunity to move the access road to the other side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So then, and then we'd be keeping the line of shrubs, that line that was identified in one of the images, that low line at the very least, that provides that separation
So you're referring to his
image.
plan, okay.
Yes.
So if you look at, I'm gonna call it sheet 1, 2, it's probably 3. It has 2 images and it says proposed access road entrance. You see where he has that? It's like
Yes.
so see that text that says proposed access road entrance?
Uh-huh.
So I went out today and I found the marker for the easement, and it's roughly just where the E and the word entrance on the right-hand side, the last E. So it's
Okay.
at the end of the text, so that's where we move the entrance to. So you can see this row of bushes would be well outside of it.
Okay. And then regarding the safety of the child in the yard, is it possible to maybe consider putting up a safety fence?
Oh, yeah, we could definitely, we definitely probably have it secured with fencing, because it becomes a real attractive nuisance to anybody, so we'd fence around 3 sides.
And then as far as the load equipment goes, it sounded like you were saying lining and dewatering maybe 2 weeks thereabout, but then there's also the head wall construction. So then for that, I'd say just, and I'm sure you guys do this anyway, communicate a work schedule for those heavier, louder activities. And then, with the property owner, and then, I mean, it is what it is. It's a construction activity, so.
Yeah, I mean, I sympathize. I had kids, they're older now, but you have this disrupts their sleep and their play and all that. Unfortunately, it's something that needs to be addressed, or it's eventually just going to fail on us. And we've had corrugated metal pipe fail many times since I've been here. Most recently on Peria, and it creates a sinkhole in the road. Fortunately, it's only like a 24-inch. Was that 24-inch, Gino? 24-inch pipe on a shoulder. This is a 48-inch pipe in the middle of the road. People are going to drive over. So we hate to see that happen.
Yeah, I think, one, the understanding needs to be there that while the overall effort is going to take, a couple weeks, months, that the louder activities is a much shorter duration, and so that could possibly help with the, concerns and the.
We'll try to work with the neighbor, and I don't know if there's a workaround, some schedules, because the contractor, of course, they bid and time is money, so they got to come in and do it as quick as possible. But we'll have to work with them as closely as we can.
Right. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Schweitzer.
All right. So if I'm understanding you, then the access road's still going to be on the north side of the culvert?
North side of the culvert, south of the
Okay.
easement line.
Will
It looks steeper on the topo than it was in real life when we're looking at it.
Okay. And speaking of the topo, I know this was received at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but will this plan, this GP1, will this be updated with your new contours, your new disturbance limit?
Yep.
And will the bushes be located on it? Just
Yeah,
to
we'll have
help
to
out?
update this plan.
Update this plan. Okay. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Is there any way of moving the access road to the Pratt side of the of Belden?
It is
Closer to Pratt, let's put it that way.
severely. It's a 2-to-1 slope. When
Is
you
it
get
really?
to that, when you start going from the pipe south and east, it's 2-to-1 the whole way around there, more or less. So it's a lot of disturbance to get that in. Cuts and fills probably.
Okay. Are you planning on doing anything on the west side of Belden Road? Besides installing the,
Just their
Temporary.
installation area. Cleaning up the down trees. There's probably a picture in there that has some down trees in there that have to come out. But other than that, just that's where they'll feed their liner from.
Okay, all right, I have nothing further. Commissioner Stevens, you had an additional question?
Just had another couple things.
I did too, actually. Okay.
Jim Sipley's sort of like me. He's just a registered soil scientist, so he's not a professional wetland scientist. So if he's not sure of the vegetation, maybe you should get a biologist out there to look at it also, just to verify that. The soil type, he's saying it's fluvents, fluviquint.
Yeah, I saw that.
Assuming he's saying, calling it the 109, which is the fluviquints udifluvents soil type, that can range from both non-hydric types of soils to hydric soils. So it's quite a versatile soil type.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think he said that they were mostly that soil type. So,
Yeah, I'm trying to
Yeah.
find that in here where you were.
I think
I know I read
Last
it.
paragraph on the first
First
page.
or generally. So, are there any
Oh, yeah, I got
small
it.
inclusional areas of federal wetlands?
Right.
And again, he's not a professional wetland scientist, so if he's not sure of the vegetation, he should get a biologist
Okay.
out there. And then again, on the west side, I don't think he mentions the soil type on that side and whether or not if there's any federal wetlands over there.
Okay.
Did he give you any map that showed soil types or any sketch map with notes or anything?
Nothing yet. I don't know if he is going to. Bob said we met with him. The town process, we have to go through the process of how can we secure and blah, blah. It was under a certain amount, so we were able to make some phone calls, made some phone calls. We were able to get Mr. Sipley. He came in as quick as he could. We sat down with him last week. He did the work, and now he's, he had his personal life that. So, I mean, this all happened within a week's time. That's why we got it today at 2.
And like I said, definitely get the ordinary high water delineated and put those on your map too.
Yep.
Because the feds would regulate that.
Yep.
Even in the absence of federal wetlands.
All right.
Okay, Commissioner Kaplan.
Yeah, again, I didn't understand the soils statement paragraph at all. I mean, I am a professional wetland scientist, and you have wetland soils, but you don't have federal hydric soils. How do you have a wetland without hydric soils?
Well, you can have floodplain soils that are
Okay.
non-hydric, so they wouldn't be a federal wetland.
Okay, I understand that now.
And it's got to be
He's
poorly
saying they're
drained.
just
Poorly
floodplain.
drained or very, very poorly
No
drained.
veg, no wetland, no wetland vegetation. Like you said, we don't know for sure if he doesn't understand wetland veg. Yeah, that makes me a little,
And he's looking at a
uneasy
dry
as
time
well.
of the year too. So-
yeah.
Yeah, there's no flow. I think he mentions that there's like no flow on that pipe, 48 inch, and there's no flow in it.
So that's where the vegetation gets really critical if
Yeah.
hydrology's not good to look at. This
Yeah,
time.
and if there's a stream, that's still waters of the U.S., so that.
Right, ordinary high water.
Yeah, that's why the ordinary high, because that's where you're gonna, if he's saying that the bordering wetlands to the stream are not federally jurisdictional, then your limits of federal jurisdiction is your ordinary high water, and that's what you would need to permit. So you may have less impacts, you may be under thresholds for different types of permits, so that's why that's important. Okay, I got it now. My other question was, and I don't know if it's shown in one of these plans, I can't remember. There's gonna be dewatering. I believe there's, you're supposed to ensure the water flow downstream is not stopped, so you should, are you gonna be creating a, a pump system, and where is that going?
For the dewatering?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gino
and
said
there's
that.
not a lot of space to work here, so I just want to understand if there's going to be any other.
There is Gino mentioned that earlier. I don't think it's shown on a plan because it hasn't been designed yet.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want, I can expand on it. So essentially what we'll do is we'll temporary dam on the upstream side.
Right.
And we'll create essentially a pool. Our pumps and everything will be up and out of the wetland area. It'll be most likely on the road itself because we are planning a shutdown of the road. So all of the pumping will be on there, and then across the road downstream into a call it a trap area, where it'll be reintroduced into the stream itself.
It might be good to just explain all that on the plans too.
That was part, if I may, I thought that was part of the drainage report. If you saw the drainage report, there was a water handling plan.
remember seeing it.
That was part, I thought that was part of it, as I recall.
I thought I saw
have a
something, I
copy.
just didn't see
I
it
have a
here,
copy
so-
here.
Yeah,
So that
apologize, I
was,
didn't bring that with me from last time. It might just be good to have one plan with, the, I don't know what you wanna call it, the site plan or the grading plan or a erosion and control plan or grading plan, I don't know, different people call it different things.
Yeah, usually when they come up for the permitting like that,
Yeah,
in my experience, it's always been a very general thing, probably like what we had, and then it's designed once we get closer, what they're gonna do. Each contractor's gonna be different, how they're gonna
yeah. I was
handle the
gonna say
water.
for an application.
right. So what you're saying, you would like that water handling plan as part of the site plan, as part of the overall
It doesn't even
plan
have to
instead?
be the exact, I think it's just be good to like show a square to say, and just kind of explain, I mean, you show your coffer dam already and just, show where that, you should show where your temporary, not your disturbance areas, your work areas, things like that, just to understand that. Where sediment erosion controls are gonna go, things like that. He wants, Commissioner mentioned that he wants, that other channel shown. It's good to just see the work all on one plan,
Yep.
yeah. That's all I have.
Anything else? Anything? No more questions? Okay. Excuse me.
I just wanted to add, just for the record also, before we get into correspondence, that, as you know, I think it was brought up at the last meeting, because this proposal is within the conservation easement, and it's been extended about 70 more feet that the Rocky Hill Town Council, if this is to be approved, the Rocky Hill Town Council will have to again give approval for the disturbance within that easement. They're the only ones that can waive that requirement.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Okay. So we do have communication against the proposal. I think we need to read it into, ask Commissioner, Secretary Kelly to read it into the record, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Dear Open Space and Conservation Board and Town Engineers, unfortunately, my wife and I are not able to attend the meeting on August 10th due to an unforeseen conflict that can't be moved. Due to this, we would like to submit the attached presentation to the town records as it relates to the proposed culvert repair and extension within a conservation easement on our property at 10 Belden Lane in Rocky Hill. We are happy to meet with anyone from the board or town engineering department following the review of the below and attached. We've met with Jason Scott and Bob Alvarado to review their plans and learn more about the project, as well as communicating verbally the concerns outlined in the attached presentation. While we understand that there is a chance the road may need to be closed if this work is not completed, we are not opposed to the closure of the end of the road. There are current issues with Belden Lane being used as a cut-through with speeding vehicles. We believe, and have voiced our concerns to planning and zoning, that these issues will be exacerbated once the Ames property is developed and leased. We do support the connection of the Silas Dean to the riverfront via sidewalks, and understand that there may be some work completed during this project that can help support sidewalk connectivity via Belden Lane due to the challenges faced on continuing the sidewalk down Pratt Street. With that said, the allure of possible sidewalk connectivity does not outweigh our concerns for this project. As detailed in the attached, the current proposal would require an access road to be constructed well outside of the currently established easement. We do not support this current plan or any of the work being completed outside of the currently established easement, and would like to limit the disturbance, both short-term while work is being completed, and long-term post-completion, both inside and outside of the easement. The work as proposed raises a number of safety, quality of life, and possible future property value implications that are detailed in the attached along with visual aids. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to contact us, parentheses, Jason and Bob have my cell phone number, close paren, or via email. We look forward to further discussion on this topic and hope we can make it to the next meeting. Best, Neil and Nicole Frutuoso.
Thank you, Secretary Kelly. Bob, do you have anything more to add?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
I make a motion to close the public.
Table it till we have all this extra.
Well, yeah, do you want to go ahead and table it? You can make your choice to either close it or table it.
I would like to table this.
Got it. Okay.
Public hearing due to a lot of requests for information on the soil scientists and other mapping concerns.
Perfect. Okay. Can I have a motion to table then? Do you have a motion?
That's
Okay.
my motion.
Got it.
Commissioner.
Okay. Second. Okay. Discussion? None?
Who was the second?
Who second
It
that?
was Scott,
Scott?
Commissioner Stevens. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, we're going to go ahead and table this to the next meeting for our September meeting.
All righty, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Move on to the next item, which is application for permit. We get a motion to, I guess we need a motion to remove A off of the agenda, considering we're tabling the, we know,
Just
just
no,
ignore?
don't take any action.
got, okay. All right, applications for permit B, Mr. Nello Morabito, Ranello's LLC, proposed construction of a 16-car parking lot and related improvements located within the upland review area of 1909 Silestine Highway. Okay.
All right. I apologize. How do I make the screen come down?
Can we please get the screen to come down for present? Thank you.
Okay.
Have to say the magic word.
Ask and you
That's how
shall
it works
receive.
around here.
I'm waving this thing around, nothing's happening. All right, introduction. I am Chris Zabidio, Close Jensen Miller. I have with me tonight Mr. Dean Gustafson from All Points Technologies, representing Mr. Morabito, who cannot be here this evening. Okay. This is 1909 Celestine Highway. As you can see from this Google Earth image, it is a mostly undeveloped property at the moment. It is an automotive repair facility. Its abutters is State Farm Insurance on the south side, some undeveloped part of the Kohl's Plaza to the west side, and the former bank, I think that was Tim Hortons Donut Shop originally on the north side. And what Mr. Morabito would like to do is to expand his parking for his business. This survey image shows the blue line is the wetlands limit. The green line is the upland review area. And what I'd like you to take note of here is a very small existing pavement area in front of the business. Parking is a burden for this business at the moment. They spill out onto the sidewalk. They overlap with the insurance agent, and we feel this parking solution's the way to go with this to expand his parking area. The property is zoned C commercial. Not that that's important for wetlands, but just as a background reference. The overall property is 0.7 acres. And let's see if I can make this thing work. Oh, too far. Okay. Where am I going with this? I lost my spot. Hold on a minute. Existing grades on the property vary from a 2-to-1 to a 4-to-1 slope. You can see that from the topography of this plan. It is obviously built up by man-made action. This is not by any stretch of the imagination, natural occurring contouring. And I just point that out as a matter of reference of what we're working with here. And my last comment before turning it over to you is that the existing building is serviced by existing utilities, water, sewer, et cetera, as well as it currently does have an oil and grease separator system, so there is no automotive waste going directly into the sanitary system without being treated first. All right. You're up.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, folks. My name's Dean Gustafson. I'm a professional soil scientist, senior wetland scientist with All Points Technology, Waterford, Connecticut. What I'm going to do is provide you with a description of the existing wetland and very conditions, and then hand it back over to Chris to talk about the proposed development. And then I'll finally get back up, talk about the regulated activities once you have everything into context and what we're proposing for mitigation. So as noted on the plan in front of you, the wetland resources are located along the western property boundary, noted in blue on this presentation slide. And it consists of a narrow, disturbed forested riparian system. It's primarily a perennial stream system that's it's unnamed, but it's a tributary to Valley Brook. There's very minimal or narrow bordering wetlands to the delineated boundary. Much of the wetland area that does have vegetation is canopy of dominant red maple with dense shrub vegetation in the understory that contains a predominance of invasive woody shrubs and vines. Historic development on the property and urbanization around the property and within the watershed of this perennial stream system has resulted in alteration, channelization of the watercourse, which has contributed to the lack of the stream structure and flashy hydrology. And we have a couple of representative photographs. So this is a view of the stream system in question, looking downstream, and if you can make out through the trees, there's the culvert to the Coles development in the background. So this gives you kind of a clear indication of what the stream system looks like through and adjacent to the subject property. The level of disturbance and development, and I'll just kind of give you another view. So this is a view from the stream bank near the property boundary looking up towards the subject property and the upland review area. And this photograph kind of exhibits the dominance of invasives in the understory. There's all the typicals in there for invasive species, multiflora rose, Japanese barberry, and honeysuckle bush. As Chris had indicated, some of the topography on this site is not naturally occurring. It's a reflection of historic development on the property and adjacent to this wetland feature. And as such, that level of disturbance, both on the property and surrounding this wetland system, is compromised the ecological integrity of this wetland system through those historic disturbances and narrowing of the riparian corridor, likely as a relative result of historic fill both on the property as well as adjoining properties. In addition, the high level of human activity on the property and adjacent properties, developed commercial properties, further diminishes typical functions and values you would expect a robust riparian system to support. And with the limited bordering wetlands and the lack of undeveloped significant upland buffer habitat, and the lack of native vegetative structure and diversity, and the dominance of invasive species further detracts from typical functions and values. There's also, we checked the Connecticut DEP Natural Diversity Database. There is no rare species habitat buffer on the property or adjacent to the property, and the nearest area is 1.2 miles to the south. And through our investigation of the property during our delineation. We didn't note any exceptional wildlife habitat values, so the property doesn't support any rare species habitat. So as a result of that analysis and our field work, we concluded that the wetland system provides minimal function values, and those that are supported are mainly some wildlife habitat and shoreline stabilization that's being provided in a secondary capacity, not at a principal level. And now that you have a better understanding of the wetland resource, I'll hand it back over to Chris to talk about the proposed development.
Okay, what you have before you now is our, we call it our grading utility erosion cementation control plan because it's a small project. We put a lot of things on the page. But what I want you to really notice is the area of the parking lot, what's being expanded. So it's a 16-lot parking area. We looked at multiple options to try and minimize any impact in the upland review area, and this is the one with the least amount of impact to the upland review. As you can see, we're proposing a anti-tracking pad as an erosion sedimentation control measure on the inlet. We have several others. Before I get ahead of myself, I'm going to lose my place again. Some detailed information for you. I want you to be aware that the upland review impact is 4,215 square feet, of which the parking area is 1,685 of that. Dean's going to talk a little bit later about his mitigation plan for this, and that is 8,500 square feet. Obviously, they're not necessarily all the same footprint of these square feet. They're different pieces and parts of it. Right. Our proposed work will grade the site from the southeast to the northwest. The runoff in the bituminous areas will be captured and treated initially by an infiltration trench of approximately 123 linear feet. The parking lot itself will have a grade of 5%. So what I'm basically pointing out there with the grading is that the water in the new parking area and the adjacent areas will sheet flow to that infiltration trench. Curbing, since sometimes that's an issue, obviously we'll not have any curbing in the area of the infiltration trench, but only along what is the eastern boundary by the area that would be, later on we have a slide showing proposed plantings. You'll see that we have some landscaping going on in there. And so now, let's see, I want to talk a little bit about, okay. Stick with this plan. In the storm drainage management category, I already mentioned the infiltration trench, and what we're treating with that is a water quality flow of a very minimal 0.2 cubic feet per second. The additional pavement area that we're adding impervious surface here is roughly 5,800 square feet, and that flows the infiltration trench. The overall area I calculated for the drainage numbers was substantially larger at 9,600 square feet. That is all being treated by the infiltration trench and its associated water quality basin. We don't expect the trench to be large enough to handle all the water that will flow into it. So we provided a water quality basin for the overflow and for the areas that don't get caught by the trench. So some water is expected to flow around the areas the trench is placed in. And for obvious reasons, you can't run the trench up alongside the building, and it wasn't feasible to run it up closer to the Silestein. So the areas that we're interested in capturing that flow around the side, the way this is graded, will go into that water quality basin without going through the trench. The overall volume of the trench and the basin far exceeds the estimated water quality flow. We've provided for the trench itself will handle 296 cubic feet, and that's based on a 40% void ratio of the fill stone. And the basin is 390 cubic feet for a total of 686 cubic feet. We only need 436 cubic feet of water quality treatment. In addition to that, another thing I'd like to point out, this plan's a little small for me to read, good thing I wrote notes. The sloped area between the water quality basin and the infiltration trench will be reinforced with a geotextile fabric. It will remain there, it'll be a permanent fixture. And the intent is that in the event that we have a severe storm, which this is New England, they happen, that water which flows out of the water quality infiltration trench would overflows, or since it may already be full, would sheet flow over it. We did not want that slope to be eroded as a result of that additional severe storm event. So we're providing a geotextile fabric for that. Along with that particular interest, the water quality basin itself could possibly be overflowed, and so we're providing a level spreader for that. The intent of the level spreader is that there will not be a concentrated flow out of the basin when that time comes. So instead of having a concentrated outlet, it is a spread outlet. I do not recall off the top of my head how wide that is, but I'm going to say it's approximately 40-odd feet in length along the top of the embankment there before any excess water flows over and then into the wetland area itself. I want to touch on E&S controls a little bit. As I mentioned, we have a anti-tracking pad for vehicles before they enter into the existing paved area before going out onto the Silestein. We have that erosion control blanket, the geotextile along the slope. Temporary silt fencing at the bottom of the hill, that's the dashed line you can see there. That will be reinforced with a compost-filled geotextile sock. The reason we did that is this area is a little bit difficult to work in when you're providing slopes like this. And so a silt fence has a potential to fail. If it's left by itself, it can be undermined or it can be just pushed down by a heavy water flow. So we reinforced the foot of the silt fence with the geotextile sock. It's kind of like a belt and suspenders solution to that. And obviously this will all be removed at the end of the project when everything is restored. In addition to that, we have erosion control narratives to direct the contractor's work during and post-construction. All right, now we're into the landscaping aspect of this. I have to be frank here. My landscape architect hurt his back this morning and cannot be here. What I know about plants is very, very minimal. So I can tell you from his notes that it is a comprehensive landscape plan, that it is a combination of major and minor deciduous trees, coniferous ground cover, herbaceous perennials, ornamental grasses, and a fescue seed mixture. And honestly, don't ask a lot of landscaping questions. I apologize for that. And then I'm going to turn this back over to Dean for the wetland buffer enhancement, because he did a great job on that. Yep, there's your plan.
Again, Dean Gustafson. So before I go into the mitigation efforts, I know Chris touched on this, but I think it's worth repeating and reinforcing. And it's probably obvious to the commission, but I'll say it anyways. There's no direct wetland impacts associated with the proposed project. And the layout of the proposed additional parking area, which is in dire need by the existing facility, the layout of that has been intentionally positioned to try to minimize activities within the upland review area. And in fact, the proposed project provides a non-disturbance buffer of 60 feet to the nearest wetland area. And that's from the proposed water quality basin. The actual buffer that's being provided to the edge of pavement is 75 feet. Chris noted this as well. The total upland review area activity being proposed is fairly minor in nature. It's a little over 4,000 square feet. About 1,600 of that is accounted for the proposed parking, and the stormwater management system comprises almost 1,800 square feet of that activity, with most of that stormwater feature being green space as part of the water quality basin. So we're not talking about significant regulated activities, and even though the adjacent wetland system, riparian system, has minimal functions and values, that doesn't provide an opportunity to say, well, no mitigation's necessary. There's always an opportunity for a project to enhance the resource, and in this particular case, we have an opportunity to enhance the adjacent upland review area that's going to remain with this proposed development. And that activity that we're proposing, with the dominance of invasive shrub species and some vines in the understory, is to target our activities, our restoration activities, to enhance that habitat through the select removal of invasive shrubs and vines. We will use a technique that we've used successfully on numerous other projects in Connecticut and in Rocky Hill, and that is selective cut and then treatment with a specific herbicide to eradicate and control those invasive shrubs and vines, and then follow up with planting of native species. We have a fairly robust planting plan proposed within the Upland Review Area Enhancement Area, utilizing a variety of native shrubs. We have essentially split that based on the hydrology of the soils on that slope to upper slope half, which is a little bit drier. So we'll use species like gray dogwood, witch hazel, and bayberry, which are more suited to those soil conditions. And then the lower half, where it gets more moderately well drained, we're selecting spice bush and silky dogwood to plant those areas. As part of the mitigation plan, we also have both construction and post-construction monitoring proposed. We'll have a wetland scientist on site working with the landscape contractor for implementation of this enhancement plan, both for invasive treatment and also for the planting of the native shrubs during construction of the project. And then we're proposing a 2-year monitoring period post-construction to monitor the enhancement plan, check the invasives, if any are coming back in, if any need additional treatment. And we've developed, 3 success standards to evaluate the success of this enhancement area. So we've noted those in the materials and also in the site plans. And essentially, they consist of, making sure that any disturbed soils as part of the enhancement activities are stabilized and no significant erosion occurs. At least 75% of the aerial surface of the enhancement areas are established with native hydrophytes and native upland plants, including 50% aerial coverage by native wetland shrubs and upland shrubs and herbaceous species. And then finally, third, control of non-native invasive wood shrub species, less than 10% of the total aerial coverage by the end of the 2-year monitoring period. So in summary, the project is thoughtfully designed and avoided any direct wetland impacts and minimized activities within the upland review area to the greatest extent possible, reviewing various alternatives to make sure that we're being conscious of the activities within the upland review area. As Chris had noted, we have a comprehensive erosion sedimentation control protection measures that will be implemented during construction to prevent any direct or indirect impacts to nearby wetland resources during construction of the facility. And the proposed enhancement to the upland review area will compensate for the unavoidable encroachment into the upland review area with an attention to improving wildlife habitat and water quality functions to the upland review area. So, and also there is a fairly robust water quality management system that's being proposed that'll properly treat runoff from this facility to avoid any secondary impacts to the receiving stream system. So in compilation of all those considerations, we feel the project will not result in a likely adverse effect to this wetland resource area. And with the mitigation that's being proposed, will actually improve some of the functions and values of that riparian corridor. So that concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's start down with Commissioner Schweitzer. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, quick question. You were mentioning 5% grade on your parking lot. Is the handicap spot, that'll be graded properly so we don't have to extend out?
Correct.
Okay,
I believe handicap is 2% max.
right, yeah, that's
I
what
was only talking to the grade such that it would show how the water would flow to the infiltration trench.
Okay, I was just checking.
Okay.
You mentioned a lot that these are man-made contours and there's a lot of fill material here. Can you have and then you're putting in an infiltration trench. Have borings and perk tests been run out there on?
No borings, but perk tests. I
Okay.
personally ran perk tests out there when was it? Time flies when you're in COVID working from home. I believe it was in the fall, maybe it was late summer of last year. Went out there with with the owner. We dug two, I'm gonna call them septic type deep pits, and we ran 2 percolation tests as well, as if we were doing a septic system. And we found, to my surprise, that the material was a fairly decent fill material. I expected to find construction debris, stones, bricks, et cetera. A couple of cars, no such luck.
That's what I was worried about when you were saying fill material. Okay, great. All right,
I
I'm
was
glad
looking
to
for
hear
a
that.
50 DeSoto, didn't happen.
Didn't happen. All right. You, I got a little bit lost in your presentation. You were mentioning extra geotextile. Could you point out where that is?
On the embankment between the water quality basin and the top of the berm where the infiltration trench upper surface is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking on the plan, it's that graded area down slope going to the west to the water quality basin.
Okay, and that's just the erosion control blanket until
it's
the
a
turf is
reinforcement, yeah.
until the turf is established.
No, it's permanent.
It's
gonna
permanent.
stay there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The intent is that in the event that, what we were concerned with at the time we thought of this was that if you had, well, we were thinking of last summer where we had those 3 big tropical storms compared to this summer where we haven't had any rain at all. In those storm events on other projects we were working on, we had some fairly substantial, erosion would be too kind a word. So we were thinking of that when we said, well, you know, I don't want to have that embankment fail because we are basically storing water in it. That's the infiltration trench. What if we got a really bad storm like those ones last summer? Well, okay, now we have to do something to protect that slope. So that's where the geotextile reinforcement thought came from.
Okay. Is there a snow management plan or
No, I can
thoughts,
honestly say I
ideas?
didn't think of snow.
where you're gonna, could you look into that? Get an area where you wanna have the snow plowed so that it will still utilize your trench? And then I know you had a photometrics plan in there. Is there anything you want to touch on with that environmentally, just for the record, or you guys all set with just having the plan submitted?
I don't think we have it in the PowerPoint. It's a very basic photometric plan. I can get a plan sheet out. I had to bring a set of plans with me. I think it is 1 light pole and 1 wall pack, maybe 2 wall packs. Frankly, I didn't study it that closely.
Okay.
I didn't think lighting was going to come up in inland wetlands.
Well, usually as we question, and
Okay.
it looked like it wasn't having any impact down there. I just wanted to see if
It
you wanted to
won't.
put something in on the record
Yeah,
for
the
that.
light is faced towards the parking lot. The pole is on the embankment on the west side facing towards the Silestein. And it's, a limited, what's the term for the cutoff? They call, the white people call that something?
Oh, they're full cutoff.
Full cutoff, that's what I'm looking for. So
So-
it won't shine out onto the Silestein.
Okay.
I think I can address your possible concern with respect to light spillage impacting the buffer zone, or more importantly, would light spillage impact the actual stream system? So looking at the photometric plan, there's very little light spillage beyond the existing footprint of the parking lot, so there'd be minimal light spillage actually into the upland review area. and no light spillage into the perennial stream system.
Okay, great. No, I just wanted you to put that on the record. Thank you very much. I'm all set.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Connor?
I have no question.
Okay. Commissioner Kaplan?
I just want to say this is a very good plan, and I commend you both for it. And my question has to do, I have a couple questions. One with the grading of the site to the infiltration basin. So is the plan to come to the back of the parking lot and then come, the drainage would then come down the trench and then kind of into the water quality basin, or? It looks like your grades are going 79, 78, 77 into the back of the parking lot. And
Correct, to the northwest.
Back there.
Yeah, and then what will happen is, in that initial, the term used to be first flush, I don't think they still use that, but the water flowing across the lot that picks up the usual spilled gas, oil, et cetera, as well as any sand and such, will flow into that, be treated in that regard. Excess water capacity beyond that volume that we got, that I quoted earlier, that water then will continue to flow over the infiltration trench to the water quality basin.
Okay, all right. So
And
would
that
it-
is a secondary treatment option at that point, or not option, feature, where it will be planted with plants that are, I wish Kevin were here. The types of plants that are good at filtering out these various toxins and pollutants.
Yeah, I'm strictly just trying to think of water. It looks like it's gonna come down the back, and then it kinda needs to jog to the, I don't know.
West.
To the southwest, yeah. So I'm wondering if you have a really bad storm, is it gonna go out the back and keep going into the, adjacent parcel there?
Which, the parcel on, in the drawing
And
to the
the
left?
west, to the.
The north.
To the north.
The north.
To the
To
north.
the north.
Yeah, that's, all right,
Northwest.
to the north. It should not in any way flow over there, because beyond our actual construction limits, that area is still fairly low lying. It's lower than the, I guess it's banked now. So what would exceed what we're treating in the water quality basin can still overflow that, but this is now past that first flush. So this would be essentially just rainwater that's going down along, between the two properties and into the brook.
But yeah, with the way the grades work on that end of the property, it still directs everything to the water quality basin.
Okay, you know what I was asking.
Yep.
And then you did, I love the planting plan with natives, but it seems like your landscape architect is not using native species, though. You have all these natives, and then you've got Russian and other things that are Siberian. Are those native?
So, I mean,
They're landscaping. I know landscapers like to make things look pretty, so.
Well, the landscaping up by the street is obviously ornamental landscaping.
Yeah.
As far as my knowledge of, plantings and things like that. Frankly, I can tell a conifer from a deciduous, but beyond that, I'm lost. I hope you can
I
expand on
just
that a
didn't know,
little
Dean, if
bit.
there was other, like, native replacements instead of these ones that don't sound native.
yeah, I mean, you correctly noted that there's a mix of native and then, then there's some
And the
cultivars and then there's purely ornamental species.
Yeah.
And I think that Kevin was probably sensitive to this being, kind of a streetscape. It's right on the road there, so.
Yeah.
Some aesthetics he wants to bring in with kind of mixing the natives and kind of the non-natives. Certainly none of them are invasive, but certainly in everything out the back of the property as we're facing the upland review area, I mean, that's all native plantings, native seed mixes.
Still looks like there's Siberian stuff, so if you tell me that those are natives, then,
So the Siberian isn't. It's definitely just the.
yeah, there's a big
Well, there's 8 of them
Siberian
underneath
carpet
the,
cypress in that back corner there by the building.
They gotta be fairly small, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Those are them there.
If the rest of commission doesn't care, it's fine. You're making such a big deal to remove all the invasives and non-natives, and then you're planting ornamental, non-native plants at the site. I don't know, just, that's my only other comment.
Okay, Secretary Kelly.
Yes, I have a few questions. To follow up on the landscaping and the plantings, I'm looking at sheet 6 of 8 in the landscape notes. And, midway down, under the standards, the Rocky Hill zoning regulations, halfway through that middle paragraph, it says required 3,831 square feet of plantings. It says proposed 3,100 and some square feet, which is like 700 square feet less than required. Below that, under parking lot landscaping, it says required 486 square feet, proposed 446. So I'm wondering, why are we proposing less than is required?
My assumption, and I say that because it is an assumption, is that our intent is to ask for a waiver of planning and zoning when we get there.
And why would that be?
My, again, assumption is that for whatever reason, we can't meet that requirement.
And I'm not trying to sound argumentative, but why would that be, that you can't meet it if it's a requirement? Is it a space constraint? Is it the layout of the parking lot? You just help me understand it.
Yes, it is. It's a factor of the proposed development not being able to fit in the lot the way the zoning requirements request them. So we'll be asking for waivers for the correct amount of landscaping and parking, et cetera. I know that's not really the answer you're looking for. That's what I've got for you.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. My other question is, as a town and on this commission, we're trying to implement low-impact development everywhere we can in every project that comes before us. So, we're looking at this, which is mostly a paving project. What can we do about portions of it being pervious pavement or pervious surfaces? What can we do perhaps with the rain garden and the islands? What can you present to us that would fit into low-impact development?
Well, regarding the rain garden, we could use the water quality basin as a rain garden. That it would simply, at this point, be a matter of what's planted in it.
Okay.
All right, so that's an option for you. The infiltration trench is, in fact, an LID development.
Okay.
If there's, well, we can look at that a little further and see if there's anything else that we could fit into there, but you're balancing the work in the upland review area against the needs of the development. So at some point, there's this balance of how much we need to do to get the parking lot in, and where you would then put other, in other words, additional features would get further into the upland review area. So one of the reasons one of the options we looked at earlier was to have a larger landscape island alongside the sidewalk. But the larger that landscape island got, the further the parking lot got into the upland review area.
Understand.
So to pull up towards the Silas Dean more to get enough room to have landscaping, but as far out of the upland review area as we could, this was the solution that gave us the least amount of work in the upland review area.
Okay.
And so a lot of these things I think you're thinking of, the more we add to it, the more we're impacting that upland review area.
Okay, what about pervious surfaces?
As far as the proposed work, it will all be a pervious surface.
It will all be pervious or be? It'll be impervious.
So if you're
That's what
asking
we're
about
trying
looking
to-
at doing something like a pervious pavement or something of that nature, we could look at it. I think in conversations we had with Mr. Morabito, he was more concerned with what he would have to do to maintain that. This was an alien concept to him. I hate to say this like this because, well, frankly, it is. Talking to him about, a bituminous surface that would take water through it. If you're not in the business of construction, and this is relatively new technology you're talking about, you kind of get glazed over eyes. He literally just looked at us and go, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Can it be explained?
Well,
It's an environmentally.
We made the effort to
sustainable
explain, and
topic.
it's, from his point of view, is he's going to have to maintain something he doesn't really want. So, this was, at one time we looked at doing the whole thing as a gravel surface, no pavement at all, with the idea being that that would be the best compromise of impervious versus pervious surfaces. At the end of the day with that, going back to the snow plowing question, we end up putting a lot of gravel in the snowbank and then having to grade it back out every year. So that really was less than ideal as well.
What about the handicap access sidewalk? That's a small area. Could that be one of these pervious? I'm not familiar with pervious bituminous. I'm thinking pavers and whatever, but I think pavers on a handicapped access probably would be counterproductive. I mean, that might be difficult. Wheelchairs over pavers, I don't know.
Well, pavers in a handicap becomes one of those things where, and again, I'm no ADA specialist.
If I may speak on it, because we've been going through this before.
Yep.
We have a few issues with pavers as far as, for handicap accessibility. However, there's still potential for pavers to convert some of those parking stalls, Chris, onto permeable pavers that can do that job. Not necessarily near the handicap space, but away from it. And I understand that you have done great with your low impact development practices here. I'm all for the stone trench and the water quality basin. That's great. I mean, we are trying to avoid, as you know, direct impact to the water course. Not everything has to be piped directly into a brook. And that's what we're trying to achieve here, and that's what you are doing. But I think Sandy is saying, well, maybe another low-impact measure could be permeable blocks that could be used as parking stalls. Perhaps by I want to say, the southwest corner of the parking lot. Would that be probably a good area to try some permeable blocks as opposed to bituminous?
We can certainly look at it. I designed a similar type of parking lot for cedar stone and mulch. Whether it got built or not, I don't know. I haven't been up there in a while. But that whole front parking of their new retail building was intended to be a similar type of system. But one of the things that's key about that is a business like Cedar Stone and Mulch can maintain that parking area. My fear, frankly, is in an area like this, we can install them, but will they be maintained? Do they begin to come apart in time?
Yeah, but we can see to it that it be maintained properly for at least a few years.
For a few years.
And then they can hopefully get the hint, so.
We'll certainly take a look at it.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
I'm set.
Anything else? Commissioner Stevens?
Okay. I also want to just commend you guys. I think it's a great plan. I generally think that everything looks pretty good. I have a couple questions, and I am very comfortable with Dean's work, so not that I'm questioning his wetland line or anything, but so take a deep breath. I'm not doing too bad.
I'm very comfortable with his work, too.
So the wetland line, there's no wetland flag numbers on it. It looks like maybe you put up about 12 or so. You can just comment that what you flagged is shown appropriately on the map.
Yep. Yeah, I can make that statement right now. So, yeah, we've reviewed the wetland boundary as depicted on the submitted site plans, and they accurately reflect our delineation in the field.
Okay, great. Let's see. Talking about this, I also had a question about the snow storage, and maybe that is an area where you could put the permeable pavement or whatever, where you plan to store the snow. That might be a good idea.
Possibly we could put it a little, again, this would expand into the, no.
What's on the far?
If we were to go north.
Yeah, what's on the far north end where that pavement shoots out? Is that a parking
It's
spot?
landscape buffer. We weren't proposing to do anything in that area, but this is something where we could combine the permeable pavers, such as they were, with the request for the snow storage.
Like the far northwestern?
Yeah, just extend that hammerhead out, which is basically just there to provide the last two parking spaces, a place to K-turn out of. You go to back up, you want to get out of there.
Okay.
So if we were to extend that a little bit and make that pavers, think about where the snow storage would have to be, but yeah, we can
Okay.
maybe look at doing that.
So that was one of my questions. And then with the planting plan, if we could have species, proposed, that would be native, non-invasive species. That would be good. That's what we always recommend.
Landscaping, right?
Yeah. Yep. And then as far as the invasive species removal plan and then the planting plans, I think you mentioned it was 2 years on invasive species.
That's correct.
Could we do 3 years on that? And then what about the planting plan? Is that 2 years monitoring, or is that, could we go 3 to 5, or that's what we normally recommend?
So for both the invasives and the native plantings, if the commission's more comfortable going with 3 years, I don't think we have an issue with that.
Okay, and then that would be, you'd replace anything that's dead, or maybe greater than 10% morbidity, or how would you do that?
So we have a performance standard of 75% aerial coverage, but if you would like an additional performance standard where, if there's more than 10% mortality of any of the plants in totality,
Yep.
that they be replanted, so we can add that as a fourth performance standard.
Okay, yeah, I'd like that if you could have that. So you do 3 years on invasive species and 3 years on the planting plan?
Correct.
Monitoring, okay,
And we can amend those notes in the plans.
great.
Resubmit.
That's all I got.
Commissioner Brown.
Okay. Even though you said don't get into the planting plan.
This is what this has been about.
Oh, yeah. The compact inkberry that you're putting in is probably going to be about 2 feet high, and it's only going to grow 4 to 6. My question is, are they going to trim them down, or is the purpose of the planting plan to let them grow tall enough to hide the parking lot?
Well, there is a little bit of a berm there along the sidewalk end, which was intended to be screening. That was Kevin's intent with that extensive run of plantings along that area there, is to shield the parking area from the Silestein. As far as the inkberry question, I think that's what he was going for, is to hide the parking lot.
Right, to let it grow, because its max is 4 to 6 feet.
Right,
And it's
on
slow
top of-
growing, though, is the other problem. It's going to take years to hit 6.
It's also on top of if you're looking at Plan 5 of 8, you can see the contouring there a little bit, where we've brought the ground up a little bit alongside the southernmost elbow of that, along the sidewalk area, and then tapers down going towards the north. So these plants, going back to the other page, would be strung out along there, and again, with the idea of a visual barrier. As far as their growth times and things like that, it's out of my scope. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm just, pass it on that. Are they planning on laying, to make that a thick buffer to block the parking lot?
Certainly in time, that's the intent.
Okay.
So I can speak to the intent, but as far as what these plants do once they're in the ground, my job at home is dig the hole.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Right, same,
much about
just let them grow.
it.
Okay.
Life points, I dig, she plants. That's my landscaping skill.
And one other thing, on the light plan, I see that there's no leakage into the brook, but can you specify 3,000 K lights and not 4,000 or 5,000? Just because 5,000 is daylight, and that tends to, any wildlife or anything, reset the clock, making it think it's daytime. So using a 4K or preferably a 3,000 K light, it's not the same as daylight.
So you're looking at reducing the intensity of the proposal?
Well, not the intensity, the wavelength. A much more yellow light than a blue light.
Okay.
5K is very harsh. When the town put in the LED street lights, I came before the council twice and say, don't use 5K, it's glare. Use, see if we can get 3K. It's much easier on the eyes, much easier on wildlife.
So this reference you're referring to is a light frequency, not
Right,
a...
it's a temperature specification, 3,000 K.
Okay.
If you look on the plan, it's somewhere it lists 5,000. 4,000 is cool light, which is actually still harsh, and 3,000 is warm light.
Okay.
So if we get the 3K lights in there, it'd be great. That's just less, even though the light isn't leaking in there, if anything's in there and looks out at the area, it won't see daylight.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, thanks, that's it.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Just one quick follow-up question. The existing parking in front of the building where he parks today?
Yes.
Is that intended to be just open driveway?
Well, that's the intent, yes.
Okay.
Currently, they do park there. It's very congested. People dropping off cars that have been serviced and ready to be picked up, et cetera. I mean, we've all been to the garage. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I've been by there, personally on my travels at times where I just kind of look by it as a curiosity, as a client, and gone, how does he function? So this will give him that ability to clean up that parking congestion in front of the door.
So following up on Commissioner Kelly's point with requesting the permeable pavement, is this something where the clients are going to show up, they're going to pull up in front of his building and park where they do existing today, describe their situation, then he or his employees would be taking the cars and parking them over to store in this parking lot that's being built? Is that the intention?
Well, the storage is the intention. Who's driving it over there?
Okay.
Beyond me.
No, I'm just looking at, it's not going to be a high-impact parking lot with a lot of traffic hourly.
The
It's
parking
being
area
stored,
is storage.
so it'll survive easier with permeable pavement, if
Okay.
that's an argument you want to make with your client.
I think what we are likely thinking about it as we discuss this, probably use that hammerhead and expand that a little bit to cover your snow shelf and do that as the impervious. Pervious, the pavers. But yes, the parking lot, the proposed parking lot is storage of vehicles that are waiting service, et cetera, customer park to go in and talk. The idea is to get them out from in front of the garage.
Yep, no, understood. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Secretary Kelly.
One last question on this pervious surfaces. Any option for the dumpster pad to be a pervious surface? I don't know what kind of leakage you expect to have from a dumpster that you want it to be on an impervious surface.
Well,
but-
the concern with a dumpster pad typically is that the operation of the equipment used to empty it tends not to be the most gentle.
More
And so
careful.
a
Understood.
paving surface is going to last 24 days. I'm just making up a number, but I'm giving you the idea that the reason we do a 5,000 PSA concrete mix on a dumpster pad is because they beat the hell out of it.
Okay, well, thank you for educating me. Now I know more about dumpsters than I used to.
Yeah, we can have a long discussion about dumpsters if you'd like.
So before you table, I just want to say that we've been working with the owner of this property for about 6 years. So this plan is 6 years in the making. So I'm glad to see it finally, before this commission, because we've been meeting quite a few times, sometimes twice a year, to try to get it right, to try to get something that will be suitable for this commission to approve. And I'm glad that, we're moving in the right direction. I think the practices that are shown thus far are excellent. The invasive species plan, I believe, is probably one of the best I've seen for a small site like this. I have, it's hard to see a better plan than this, to be honest with you. So I'm glad that the owner have Dean and Chris on board, doing the things that we've been asking him to do for the past 6 years. It would have been cheaper to build it 5 years ago, but I'm glad that it's coming to fruition.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I don't have any questions. I do want to say that this is one of the best plans that I have seen in quite a long time. So thank you very, very much. Much appreciated. Okay, if there are no further questions, can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a motion to table this permit application for Mr. Nello Morabito, proposed construction of a 16-car parking lot and related improvements located within the Upland Review area at 1909 Celestine Highway.
Okay, do I have a second? Again, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No? Motion passes. It will be, go ahead and table till next meeting.
See you
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, you too. Okay. Action taken, minutes presented for approval for July 13th. 2022. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
July.
Second, Dave? Okay. Discussion?
Comment?
Go ahead. Sure.
On page 2, the paragraph that starts with Mr. Jason Scott, it says Belden Lane near the intersection of France Street. That should be Pratt.
Yes.
And page 3, next to last paragraph, 1, 2, 3, fourth line, over towards the right-hand margin, it says, "This something they will discuss." It should be, "This is something." And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Excuse me. Nope. Okay, it passes. Thank you. Okay, discussion. Plan of conservation development.
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Status reports. Bob?
Just very quickly, a couple of them that I just wanted to make you aware of. The Straska's Farm, as you know, on the west end, we did get a different contractor that is presently working in the demo of the house. Remediation is being done right now, and the content of the house is being emptied, and soon, I believe sometime, probably next week, we're gonna see the house being demoed and the area graded. So we'll stay tuned. Ames, they're still working on it. They're doing demo work also and remediation. But as you know, it's a slightly bigger place than the Straska house, you know. So it's gonna take some time. You know, a lot of demo work there. The Old Main Street subdivision, which is a 14-lot subdivision that was approved actually by the Planning and Zoning some time ago, that was under litigation with the DEEP for work that took place in state land without permits. That was signed off on by the DEP. Finally, they worked out an agreement, but they have not commenced any construction there yet. Same thing with the restaurant hotel at Exit 24, which is the, I believe it was an Olive Garden, and I forgot the name of the hotel that it was being proposed. And as you know, it was approved by this commission. So that one is presently being reviewed by the MDC for approvals. I believe most of the approvals, or all, if not all the approvals from the DOT have been granted. So they're waiting on MDC to approve. And that's all I have on that.
Okay, great, thank you. Open space?
Nothing.
Nothing. Legislation?
None.
Nothing. Conferences?
None.
No? Okay, correspondence, communications.
We had I get a heads up or a letter by Eversource telling the town of Rocky Hill that they're going to be working on their lines from which will be on Beckley Road, which will be almost opposite the Berlin Fairgrounds, all the way to West Street. So this is something that they did a few years ago. They cleared those lines. We kept an eye on them to make sure that they still within the easement, that they stabilize anything that is disturbed. And they're going to be doing the same. They're going to be doing more of their infrastructure work along the line.
My company's actually working on that that project and the environmental side of it. It's just Pinko replacement, so it's just overhead work.
Overhead.
So it should just be overhead.
Overhead work from what I see.
Yeah.
But
And
they still need to get access.
They still
So
have
we just want to make sure that they do it at the right time of the year, and whatever is disturbed, that they are mindful that it needs to be restored. And if they need to put down mats to protect wetlands and water courses, to do so.
I can tell you that my company has already permitted that and will be monitoring that, so.
Cool.
Okay, other business? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. We are adjourned.